Good morning. My name is Kara Cleveland, and I'm the supervisor of the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I will be the host and question moderator for today's webinar, Encountering the Past, the Indiana State Library's Digital Collections, presented by Chris Marshall, Digital Collections Coordinator for the Indiana Collection at the Indiana State Library. A few housekeeping items before we start. If you are having sound issues during the webinar, please see the sound issues box just below the chat box on the left-hand side of your screen. If there's a global sound issue, we will announce it in the chat box. If you're unable to resolve the sound issue you're experiencing, we are recording the webinar and you can watch it offline after it has ended. Again, if there is a global sound issue, we will make an announcement in this chat box on the left-hand side. If you have a question, just type it in the chat box on the upper left side of the screen. Chris will be answering questions at the end of the webinar. And today's session is worth 1 TLEU, and your certificate will be available for download at the end of this webinar. Also, today's webinar will be recorded and archived. After the webinar has been transcribed, it will be available on the Indiana State Library's Archived Webinars page. For weekly updates on upcoming trainings and to learn more about what's happening in libraries across the state, please subscribe to the Indiana State Library's e-newsletter, The Wednesday Word, and check our continuing education website for other professional development opportunities. And now I am happy to turn the presentation over to Chris.
Good morning. I'm Chris Marshall. I'm the, as she's already told you, I'm the Indiana Division's Digital Collections Coordinator. And I just want to start out by giving you a little bit about what this presentation is about. I was actually out to dinner with a group of friends, some of whom were school librarians, and I got to talking about what I do. And of course they kind of got interested and wanted to know what kind of stuff I do, and they're always talking about how they're trying to find primary sources and things like that. So a lot of the answers, or what I'm going to be talking about, are answers to their questions. So I decided to form a PowerPoint and see if it helps anybody else out there in the world. So basically what I'm going to do is talk about the Indiana State Library's digital collections, some of the things we're doing, where you can find primary sources, talk about some things that really, I kind of geared this a little towards school librarians, but there are going to be some things that you're going to be like, yeah, I don't think my kids need to know about copyright, but I threw it in there anyway. So if there's anybody beyond school librarians, you can use that information if you want. If not, so this is just kind of an introduction to what we're doing, what kinds of projects we're working on. Also take a look at Content DM, which a lot of digital collections use Content DM. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with Content DM, so I thought I'd point some of that stuff out as well. And so hopefully you'll take away something from this webinar. If not, you know what you'll at least get is a TLEU. So anyway, let's get started. So Encounter the Past is the name of our website. So when you go to our website and look for our digital collections, you're going to notice that Encounter the Past is the title, and we'll be taking a look at the website as we go through. So the Indiana State Library's digital collections, we have maps, manuscripts, Bible records, trade catalogs. Our state library collection includes a variety of materials for researchers to come in and use. We have, over about 120,000 printed volumes. We've got 11,000 maps. There's tons of rare books and manuscripts. There's lots of genealogy materials. So the state library has a lot to offer. I've only been here for a year and a half, and I am amazed at the amount of stuff that this place has. So I keep digging through things, looking for things for us to digitize, coming up with ideas for projects, etc. So there's just a variety of materials, and of course it makes it very difficult when you're just going through drawers and drawers and it's like, I want to digitize this, I want to digitize that. So we have a lot to choose from. So we try to find materials that can be used in classroom settings for research, general use, or if you're an insomniac and you need some late night browsing, we also, offer that kind of browsing as well. So we have a continuing growing collection of materials and we add to it every month. I think last month I added over 800, well, it wasn't quite over, but close to 800 individual scans. So we're just, I'm just continually scanning materials and adding. In fact, this item here is an item that I dug out and I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. The 50th annual convention of the Indiana State Teachers Association from 1903. And we have a nice run of their programs. So you can find this in our collections now. So, as teachers, if you're interested in seeing what they were teaching back in 1903, I was kind of interested to see that they were having their convention on December 29th. I'm sure you would all be enthused today to go to a convention on December 29th. I'd be like, no. I especially like the ones that were on December 26th. I'm like, forget you. So, 1903, a different time period. So, but, how do we decide? I got a question, how do you decide what you're going to put in? With such a large collection of materials, we do have to be selective on what we digitize. So a lot of it is based on some of the questions that you see here. Is it rare? Recently digitized an 1850s Indianapolis map, which is extremely rare. And it was a very fragile, and so we took some time to do that and post it. We couldn't find it anywhere else, not even at the Library of Congress. So our maps librarian was just enthused that we were able to get this done and put up. What's the condition? For example, the 1850s map was in a dozen pieces, if not more. Actually, I think it was more than a dozen pieces. So it had to be pieced together. We had a lot of work that had to be done just to get it ready to go. How fragile is it? It kind of goes along with the condition. I've handled things that I thought for sure that they were going to fall apart in my hands as we went along. Is it a current or popular topic? We have some centennials coming up, or we are actually in the middle of the centennial for World War I. So we are looking at things like that. And then things like, what would genealogists use? I've put up some materials that I'm pretty sure that, if we get some good advertisement, genealogists will be like all over it if they're looking for family members. Or, people work places and there's, like if they worked at a business or something and we have like company newsletters, things like that. So those are some of the questions that we ask ourselves. As well as many others, like, how could students use this? How could, high school students use this in their papers, research, college students, people who are researching specific topics. We have Ray Boomhauer coming in doing a research topic. Is there something there that, he might use? So, and sometimes I do find myself digitizing things that people actually came in and used. The Colonization Society, which was big in the 1840s and 50s in Indiana, just had a gentleman in using them. I'm like, let's scan some of this stuff and put it up. It's rare. It's a popular topic at the moment, it seems like. So when you go to our website, before I do this, whoops, I gotta go back. Let's see, where is my, quit going forward. Hang on, we got to find, where's the bar to get me to the, let's just do end show. So let's go to the website. So here's our website, Indiana State Library. When you go to our website, we've got them all nicely laid out right here. You're probably familiar with Inspire, a very popular database. We just have Indiana Legacy is now popped up on here. And the Hoosier State Chronicles, Indiana Memory. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. Our collections and services, and then here's the button for the Indiana State Library's digital collections. Encounter the past, an ever-growing number of digitized items from the Indiana State Library's collection. So this is what our website looks like. We have several different topics that have been pulled out, trade catalogs, genealogy, artwork, broadsides, and then we have this nice, latest editions that have been added. Some of them do not look very enthusiastic. You get this plain brown book cover, but it's actually probably one of the 1820s Indiana Acts law books. Some of them look more enthusiasm. You get a little more enthusiastic, over the visual than this book cover, but we do the best we can. So this is what our website looks like, and there's lots of various ways you can go in and look for things. Go back to the slideshow. We talked about that. So how do we find the stuff? This is, pure, basic, simple, type of Google search. Searching our digital collections is easy. The best way is to literally start putting your search terms into the box. When I started, working here, I started messing with, and actually I messed with this collection long before I started working here when I was working at the public library. I just would literally go in and put in the keywords. So, the fewer words you get, the more hits you will get. For example, if we try putting in Columbus, the city, and not the guy, you should get about over 240 results, maybe more if we've added new materials. So when you're looking, you search 20 collections. If you notice up here, it says 20 collections. And that was just putting in Columbus, and you see you've got 243 results, 13 lucky pages. But then, if you just add the word map, you should get just over 20 results. So if we go back and we actually do it, so if we put in Columbus, so we get a lot of different things. So some things may not necessarily be related to Columbus. So the first one is a map of Columbus. Then some of these others I'd have to look and see. I'm not sure who the Gray Ladies graduating class is. Lincoln Orinoco Shops was a company in Columbus, Indiana. The Morton Echo, as far as I know, has nothing to do with Columbus. And then for some reason we get the Franklin County Courthouse in Columbus, Ohio. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of variety of materials that come up. Now if we go back and hopefully we put in Columbus and we put in map, hopefully we'll get something a little bit more specific. So be aware that we do have that keyword searching, because it's searching over all of these, and you can go through all 27 or 77, I'm sorry, 77 collections and unclick and reclick. But here, for example, comes up the Columbus map. But now we got a whole different, the John Tipton papers. I'm not sure. There's probably a map in Columbus in there. There's just a variety of things that will come up. Okay. So, so something to remember when you are looking at the results, they're not all about Columbus, nor are they all maps. So it is really keyword searching. So if you're trying to show kids, this is something that you can explain. I think this is pretty basic, stuff that they would run then to Google and try there as well. Even I would run to Google and try it. Who knows? But usually the best results are at the top, and it looks like I'm pretty sure we have more than one map of Columbus, but I could be wrong. That's just something to remember. So you can do the advanced search screen as well. Here you can find other searching options, such as all of the words, any of the words, the exact phrase, none of the words. Oh, and I have a misspelling right here, right off the top. Oh, I hate that. You can also see the fields that you want to search, as well as add another field if you want. What that basically means is when we go back over here, we can do the advanced search. Let's go back to the beginning. And it's kind of tucked out right there, just kind of hiding out. This is where you can really do some more searching. You can add another field, so you can add up to 4 boxes. And this is where, nope, you can only do 4. And this is where you could really do, all of the words, any of the words, the exact phrase, none of the words. It kind of makes me wonder, do we even do Boolean searching anymore? It seems to have gone away, as Google begins to take over our world, of searching. It seems like you might not have to. And you can do and or over here. You can also select all the different fields. Maybe you want to search subject terms. You want to do a title search or description. So there's a variety that you can do. And you can also see what collections are being searched doing here as well. This is where you can go in and define what ones you want to look at. Now, one of the things I want to point out, and this seems to be something that confuses a lot of people, and I'm going to be honest, it confuses me as well sometimes. It's like, what's going on here? The first time I started using this, I was like, are these Indiana State Library collections, or what are these other collections that are hanging out there? I want to point out that the ones that you see checkmarked are the collections that are at the Indiana State Library. These are the ones that we have created and do. The rest of these are ones that Indiana Memory has gone out and digitized and host on our site, so that's why they all show up there. So when we get to actually go into the state library's collection and look, you're not going to see all of these, and it's going to be like, I know that I saw this Indiana Athletic Association handbook, and now I can't seem to find it. So that's something to bear in mind, and I'm going to show you how you can find some of those, because it does get a little confusing right there. And because one time I was looking for the Athletic Association handbooks, and I'm like, I'm not sure I went through a time warp or anything, but I'm sure that I saw that, and now it's gone. So be aware that there are all these other collections that you can also search. And this is interesting. I don't know why this one's not. This is one of ours, but it's not clicked on. So bear that in mind as you're looking through the collections, because maybe you do want to go through and uncheck some of these and say, we're just looking for this, this, and this. We just want to look at the Education Indiana and look at the Arts and Entertainment. So you can go in and uncheck and recheck and check as many as you like, or it would be a little bit hard to go through and uncheck everything. So I can show you how to go through. So we can do the advanced search as well on here. Okay. Where am I going next? That's always the question. Okay. So so there is the really nice advanced search. So for example, if you see on here, I went in and I've gone into the Civilian Conservation Corps newsletter, which sometimes can be very hard to search. You type in Limberlost Ledger and you can do the exact phrase, which is what I've done here, and it will literally bring up just the issues of the Limberlost Ledger. But we have some other great options on here. If you literally want to just do some browsing and get an idea of what we have, you can click on the A to Z. From here you can go and browse individual collections. So this will give you an idea of all the collections that we have. And we do have a long list, and we are adding some more. Whoops, let me get rid of that. Our current collections, we have the Arts and Entertainment, the CCC newsletters, which really focus quite a bit on the state parks. The company employee newsletters. I was amazed to find when I came here that we had this collection of all these newsletters from these companies across the state. I was like, wow, this is quite, I've never seen it anywhere else. So that was quite interesting. So those two, as well as Education Indiana, are ones that we've recently added. Highlights of the ISL manuscript collection. We've got the John Tipton collection. We've got Women in Hoosier History. We've got the photograph collection. There's oral history. There's broadsides. There's just a variety of collections. So when you're looking at the website, here it is, the A to Z list. And you can click on the individual. It's like, oh, what's this? And you can actually click on the individual 1. The Civilian Conservation Corps, LGBTQ history, Indiana authors and their works, on and on. Here's the Indiana Historical Print Collection, which is kind of this hodgepodge of materials that really don't fit into any of the other categories. This great broadside collection if you're looking for visuals, genealogy collection, small manuscripts, the maps, which just seems to keep growing. I've added a lot of maps since I've started here. Very popular collection. The photographs, another very popular collection. Trade catalogs, which are kind of the advertisements, like come buy our new Marmon car, or come buy our, farm equipment. The kind of advertisements. Women in History, that's a new one that we've added. We're getting ready for the Suffrage Bicentennial is coming up. And of course, we're in World War I at the moment, the centennial of that. Another one that's coming down the road is the Indianapolis Bicentennial in 2020. We'll be adding some more collections. So, keep checking back. You never know what we're going to add. Oh, there's some great stuff on the monument and the Indiana Women's Prison, if you've got anybody doing research on that. So you can take a look at our list of what we have. And when you click on one of these collections, for example, if you click on Education Indiana, you'll get an overview of what you can find. So there's recent additions here on the side to see what kinds of things we've added. Here we have just a nice scroll, kind of advertising. Here's something interesting. Here's something that we just added, or it's in the collection. And then about the collection and the kinds of things that we have. In this collection, for example, we have a lot of annual reports from the Superintendent of Public Instruction that we've been adding. There's school directories. We're not so much focusing on yearbooks. That seems to be a very popular topic amongst individual libraries across the state are doing their yearbooks for local. I know the Indianapolis Public Library here has done this huge push for yearbooks, so we're not really doing as much here. If we do any, we'll focus on schools that have closed, colleges that are no longer in existence. Reports from the Indiana State Teachers Association. We have a huge run of those. So we're looking at a variety of things there. Another option for browsing is by topic. If you go back to our web page, you see that by topic. What happens when you click on this? You get literally topics, and we have created topics. Interested in railroads? We got you can click on that and it'll bring up railroads. Here's the World War I, the Civil War, Spanish-American War. So if you've got kids who are looking for, their topic is or the railroad that ran through, whatever city you're in. Let's say you're, in Greensburg, and there's a railroad that went through there, and they want to do a project on railroads or trains, especially if you're down at like Metamora, the train that runs through there. When you click on those, you do get. You get, by topic. I was like, where am I going? Oh yeah, we're going to the topics. So these are the different topics that we pulled together. So if you've got somebody who's interested in, I don't know, the influenza is really, big at the moment too. It's kind of the anniversary of that. So if we click on health and medicine, you just get a list of materials. So you can go through and see if there's, what kinds of stuff we have that deal with health and medicine. It shows different items. As opposed to, like I said, when we click on just one of these topics, here's the education in Indiana. This is where you get the screen that I showed you that shows what's the collection have in it, what's in here. And I recently added the clothesline, which is something that was done here at Blocks in Indianapolis with a bunch of high school students. It's really funny to look at. It's fun to see all the fashions. So if you've got somebody who's interested in fashion and design or whatever, might be worth looking at. The other thing that you couldn't see on the screen, on the other screen, okay, disappear, thank you, is this area down here as I point to it, and you can't see me pointing at it with my finger, so I'll use this. Browse the suggested topics. So if you're looking for education periodicals or high school and college news papers, Ridgeville College is a collection that we did. So we have a lot of those. This is a good one that really shows an example of what we have. These are the collections of newsletters that we have from the companies. And then the Civilian Conservation Corps one. This is a list of all the ones that we've added. And this list just continues to grow. I just added the Limberlost Ledger. Just very interesting to see what the CCC was doing during the 1930s, creating our state parks and doing all kinds of work around the state. So you can find those kinds of lists. Okay, where was I? Education Indiana. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. I was talking about the topics. So that is a way that students can just go through and see what kinds of things are there. A lot of primary sources. When I've dealt with kids in the past, they're always coming saying, I need primary sources. And in the digital world, I have yet to meet any students that say, our teachers say we can't use online. Well, I'm hoping that teachers are starting to have a little bit different attitudes. Yes, there are lots of fun things out there that you can use online. It's just not all somebody's website that they put together. We actually have some good quality stuff going on. And doing research papers. So the topic section is a great place to find primary sources. I was just talking about this and I forgot my slide. So in the topics collections, we have pulled together, materials. For example, I mentioned automobiles. And it pulls together from all of the collections. So there's lots of collections that it's pulling from. So for example, in this one, I've just cut and pasted what I found for automobiles, and we have, there's 16 pages worth of stuff. And last but not least is the map. This is great if you are in a certain area of the state and you want to know what kinds of stuff is for that area. So somewhere under all those pins is the state of Indiana. There's actually an outline there with all the cities. And it's amazing when you actually go to the map and look at it. It does show beyond, where am I? Let's get rid of this, let's get rid of this, let's get rid of this, and scroll up to the top. Nope, you're going the wrong direction. There we go, there's the map. It is not just Indiana. I'm amazed at some of the other stuff that I see across the state. And it's taking a while to load up, but eventually it's going to come up and it's going to show all the pins across the state, hopefully. It's stuck on the John Tipton collection. I don't know why. It's just being a little slow. Eventually it's going to come up and there's going to be all these pins, and it's going to happen real soon, and it's not happening. But trust me, it does happen. It will show all of the different it shows there are pins that will show up showing where we have stuff. And of course, I have it in the PowerPoint presentation. It's just being really, really slow for some reason. It's still stuck on John Tipton. There must be a lot of places there. So we'll just go back to this map. So this is what it really looks like when it comes up. Now, let's say you're researching a specific area of the state. You got a specific location in mind. So when you zoom in, you can see many items that we have from a specific locations, or how many items we have. Let's say, for example, you're researching the region. Up in, if you're not familiar with the region, the term, it's that area up there around Chicago on the Indiana side. So Gary, the Dunes, Portage, Hobart, Valparaiso, Crown Point, Calumet City, Hammond, all these areas up here. So you can focus in and see. And actually, when I can't do it here because this is just a cut and paste, but when you run your mouse over these, it will bring up and show you. Let's see if it finally came up. Oh, yes, yay, it finally worked. Yay. So, yeah, you can start scrolling in. Oh, now it's going to be really slow for there. Look at Indianapolis. It's barely there. It's just covered by dots. We'll give it a second. So when you start like hovering, it should give you an idea of what kinds of things. What's over here for Frankfurt? We click on that. Oh, it's being really slow today for some reason. Anyway, when you do click on those, it should bring up. Let's see if it'll let me scroll again. Oh no, it's. I don't know what's this out here in the middle of Boxley, Indiana. So when you click on that, it should bring up what it's supposed to do. All of a sudden, it's decided to be slow and contrary. Maybe it just doesn't like the map. I don't know. But it should bring up, what items are there. For some reason, it's just being temperamental and doesn't want to do it. So you can click on each of those, and it will show you what kinds of things we have in the collection from that area. So this is great for if you're specifically in an area and you're wanting to do some local history, you can click on those, and it will supposedly bring it up. Now, some of the other things, what can I do with this stuff? This was a question that I got from somebody. We do have a rights statement on the website, and you notice this on a lot of digital collections. Ours, as long as it's there's not a copyright issue, you can do just about anything you want, and we'll take a look at some things that you can do off of our website. But this has to do with copyright and fair use. I don't think too many of you are going to be too worried about it if it's a school. It's one of those things you can talk about with high school students, plagiarism and all that good stuff and copyright. At this point, if they're in middle school or something, they're not really going to care about copyright. They just want to cut and paste their image, do their presentation, and hopefully get a good grade. But a lot of people do ask sometimes about copyright. I've had questions about it. Copyright scares me. It scares a lot of people. It's not really anything to be as scared of as I think. People give good credit and things like that. So when you do find something, it's you can use it. But we'll talk about copyright in just a moment. So when you do find something, let's say for example you're looking at this and you want to know more about it. The object description is down at the bottom. This is pretty basic. I used to think, what is this mythical thing that my friends are talking about? My cataloging friends, they keep talking about metadata. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's kind of mythical to me, and I'm like, I'm not sure what that is. So basically, it's library catalog lingo. Catalogers love this kind of stuff. So the object description, aka metadata, it's basically a description of its information about information. It talks about the item. It provides the description, the subject headings, the creator, publishers, dates, and other technical information. So if you look at this example that I have, War Gardens in Indiana, it's basically your title. If you think about it, it's basically like looking at a library catalog. It's kind of the similar idea. The item ID, I like to think of that, as kind of like its call number things. And a description, a pamphlet about the Indianapolis planning of war gardens in 1917 and planning for 1918. Includes information about planning and organizations for groups, schools, home gardens, and as well as general background about the movement during World War I. Also includes application and forms. And then here's your subject headings. Gardening, war work. So, if you want to know more about gardening in the collection, you can click on gardening and it will bring it up. The creator, who created this, the publisher, the Indiana State Council of Defense in 1917. It was the beginning of the war. At any point in time, the enemy is going to invade the United States and we need to be prepared. So that kind of thing. The time period, the geographic location, what exactly is it? It's a pamphlet. It's in English. And then you get some technical information like how did we scan this? Do we use a flatbed scanner? Do we use something that, like a camera? Did we use Adobe Photoshop to do stuff with it? And and so a lot of general information can be found there. Now that you've found something, you can take a look at it, and there's lots of interesting things you can do. And I always seem to forget about some of these other, items that you can do up here. It's like I'm so busy getting enthralled and enthused about, because I actually am kind of interested in war gardens in the time period. So as I prepare for, next year to put out my own garden, I might learn something interesting in here. Not that I'm preparing for war, but you never know. So anyway. Some of the things you can do. If you've got students who need to reference the URL, it's got it right here for you. You can click on this reference URL up along in this area, and it will bring up reference URL, and there's the actual reference, which you cut and paste into your paper. And hopefully they're doing, good to do that. You can also add tags. Which is like adding a descriptive, saying, okay, this item actually includes, things on how to get rid of pests. So maybe you want to put in insects, pests, and then you can put your name, and then you can save the tags. And you can also post a comment, like, I really like this item, or, you've missed this, or you've missed that. Whether we actually see it with all the items, I'm not sure. I don't know if we get a note that says, hey, you have a comment. You need to go and take a look at it. You can also rate it if you like. You can, do a rating. Oh, I love this. Oh, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, so you give it 1 star. The other thing is you can download. You get the medium, the large, and the large, and I can honestly say I can never remember which is which. Usually I just go with a medium and see if that's the right size I need. If not, I delete it and then go back and download the large. It's just not a high priority thing on my list to remember which one is which, so I always just start downloading and see what happens. But you can download the item. So if you've got somebody who's doing research and they want to download this and save it so they can use it on their, they don't, for whatever reason, they're out in the middle of the woods with no internet, and they're writing their paper, and they're really, like in a cabin somewhere, which I can honestly say I have done. Like, I'm out of here, I'm going to do some writing, and I go sit in the woods at a cabin and write. And then I've got a download of things that I need. Alrighty, it does happen, believe it or not. You can rotate the image. So I've kind of rotated the image using the rotate left and right. You can focus on a specific part. You can make it larger or bigger using the scroll bar. The text search, if we have done some OCRing on it, which I've just recently got the OCR, so I'm starting to OCR more materials. So sometimes you really can't do that. You can print it out if you want. I'm not really sure if many people want to do that anymore, because you can download it. I had a question about copyright basics. Non-copyright items are anything before 1923. That is what was set by, in law, that, anything that's before, 1923, so anything is, free to use however you need or you want. Anything after 1923, you got to be a little bit more careful. You got to look for the copyright symbol. You got to figure out if somebody owns the copyright, and they could come back and say, you're infringing on my copyright. We're kind of moving along. It's been quite a while since I think they visited copyright. So as we get into like the 30s, 40s, 50s, it's a little bit easier to do things. And some things I have done past 1923 and put up. It's just kind of a lot of school of thought behind that at the moment. But we do, give that information. Anything before, this thing is a Rumley threshing and machinery and engines. It's from 1887. That's definitely before copyright. Nobody's going to come after you. Rumley's out of business, and I'm not even sure if anybody even owns them anymore. And there is a use statement down towards the bottom. Here's the right statement, the copyright notice, and this is in public domain, so there's really no issues. So we've, copyright is something to be concerned about, but not that concerned about. And there's, a more, close up of the no copyright. Some things we do have that say, hey, this is in copyright, and so we use the fair use statement to say we're scanning this, we're putting it up. One of my big fears is I did scan a bunch of company employee newsletters from Delco Remy, which used to be in Anderson. And of course, they're gone now, but they were owned by General Motors. And I'm kind of like, is General Motors going to come after me and tell me to take these down? So far, General Motors is probably too busy doing other things. They don't seem to really care. Plus, there's no copyright symbol on it. I don't see anything that says it's in copyright. In my heart of heart, I kind of know that General Motors probably owns the copyright, but I'll let them call me up and say, we're going to take this down or we're going to come after you. So we do kind of push the button a little bit on copyright. It's like, let me know. If it is, it might be covered, and it can be complicated. So we do add, some stuff after 1923 with some basic rules. It's just kind of bear in mind. The Ellis Ayres Aerograms newsletter, it's a company employee newsletter, was, this one is done in 1945. Ellis Ayres is out of business. I think Carson Pierre Scott maybe Macy's bought them. I'm not sure really Macy's really cares, whether we're scanning aerograms and put them up. Very local, popular department store. A lot of people work here. I've heard people say, oh, my mom worked there, my grandma worked there. So you never know who's going to come along and be like, oh, wow, here's a picture of my grandmother or whatever. So we kind of have been looking at stuff like that. And then here's an example of what I put down, what we put up, put into the boxes on them. Something that's, in copyright. In copyright, educational use permitted. This image may be used for, personal education, non-for-profit purpose, study research. We're basically like scanning our collection in case, something happens to it. We have, digital copies of it. So, but we claim the educational use, permitted. So I think that's what, a lot of kids are going to be doing anyway. But, as you get into high school students, this is something that, as they move on past high school and get into college and into their adult careers, it's something they should kind of be aware of. So we have a lot of great stuff in our collections out there. You can find materials for classroom activities, just learning about Indiana history. This is just a variety of things that I've thrown out there. This is, I just love this image. Here's an example of something from the genealogy collections. Here's the women's suffrage flyer that we have. Some example of a map. They're not all blue and look like this. This is one of those very basic state maps. There's a lot of colorful maps. Here's the monument. So there's lots of things out there in our collection. I also want to do a pitch for Indiana Memory. All of our stuff goes up into Indiana Memory, which is an awesome website which gives you even more places to go and look. And remember, I talked about that those other collections that I'm like, these aren't checked, and they're there, but they're not part of the state libraries. They're actually part of Indiana Memory. So this is another digital project that we have going on here at the state library. It's for places out across the state. We're a small public library. You don't have the money to do a digital collections, but you got a closet full of stuff. You got a file cabinet full of materials that you think might be useful. You can contact the state library and say, hey, is there a way? What can we do? So Indiana Memory is kind of this digital collaboration between Indiana libraries and historical societies. So take a look at it sometime as well. Collections across the state. The other thing I do want to point out, there's this great thing here called Teachers Resources. I sometimes forget it's there, and I like to remind myself. So when I am talking to my teacher friends, it's like, go to Indiana Memory and take a look at this little spot that I have on here. So Teachers Resources, best practices, online tutorials, tools for teaching with primary sources. Indiana Memory Collection lesson plans. And you can see all of these, lesson plans that have already been created. School librarians and teachers, you're more on top of this than I am. I'm busy going through the files, going, look at this, cool, this, let's digitize this and let's do that. So I'm, sitting at my desk scanning. You guys are out there looking for these kinds of things. So this is, good to know about. So, for additional information, you can contact the Indiana State Library via our website. Or you can call us. You know what, quite frankly, I don't remember whose phone number that is. Hopefully it's nobody, I don't think it's Jake's number, so I can't remember whose number. Hopefully it's not Brittany; she'll get me. Or you can come visit us at the library as well. We're located at 315 West Ohio Street in Indianapolis. We're just right behind the state capitol, near IUPUI, near the Historical Society. If you see something on the website and you're like, wow, I'd really like to see that in person, you can come in and we'll pull it for you. You can take a look at it. So that's pretty much what I've got. Hopefully you've pulled something exciting and interesting. You've learned something, or you're like, oh, well, at least I got an LEU. A good variety. I try to, make it across the board. So, Q&A. Do we have any questions? Kara's going to be looking at the screen with the questions if you've got any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
What does OCR stand for?
Optical something reading. Optical computer reading. I always mix it up. OCR is when the computer will go through, you have a program, and let's say you've got a typewritten item, and there's lots of keywords in there. So what it will do is it'll scan it and turn it into a digital file.
Okay.
I can't take like a pamphlet or a brochure or a booklet or something and just scan it and it automatically reads it. You have to have a program, and what it will do is it'll go along and it'll optically scan the words, the paragraphs, the sentences, and turn it into a digital file. Let me see if I can find an example. I know I've done some OCR recently. I know I did some ADAs. Oh, I know what I just recently did. I did these guys. So when you go in, if there's something in the collection and you try to look at it, it's not going to search inside the item. Yeah, Lorraine, we're working on that. I saw your question about anything from the 1800s. We are trying to start doing more of that. If it's handwritten, it's really difficult to do. That literally you have to almost sit and type in. But it's under the transcript area. And here, for example, here's this page out of the 1830 Indiana Acts 14th session. Here's these two pages, pages 6 and 7. If you start scrolling down, you'll see the object description or the metadata, and down here at the bottom is a transcript. So basically what an OCR does is it creates a transcript of what's on the page. And let me tell you, I've seen some pretty weird things, like what's going on, appropriations, scientific, I'm like, what? I don't worry about that too much. Probably people are more interested in knowing if there's anything about, James Whitcomb, Daniel J. Walker. They're looking for keywords. There was a discussion not too long ago with a fellow colleague where we were talking about this kind of stuff, and I'm like, isn't it really the more important part is getting the keywords than it is? So that's kind of what usually when you're searching for keywords. So basically, it's taken. Oh, look, and something about fencing at the governor's circle. Furnishing rails and all kinds of stuff. So. Oh, and here's coal that was 37.5 cents, and brooms. They're talking about brooms and brickwork.
Yeah,
so it's candlesticks. Yeah, so it really kind of, we can go back up and actually look and see. They're talking about spending money is basically. Other questions?
Carter says, I've used OCR before. It can be a wild ride.
Oh my gosh, yes. I have tried to OCR some of the CCC newsletters. They are all literally typed on a typewriter. Oh. Did not come through at all. I have tried to OCR those, and sometimes it just doesn't work. It just comes out a big googly mess. I mean, this is pretty good because it's a printed item. And it's handwritten readable. Items has to be done by hand. So
Anybody else have any questions? You can type them in the chat box on the left.
yeah, there are some OCR material, programs out there that, yeah, I prefer to type it in myself. Sometimes, yeah, I know what you mean, but I don't know if you'd want to type in this book. It's like 50 some pages long, if not longer. But sometimes it is easier to just go in and type and do some cleanup. Sometimes I'll do cleanup, sometimes not. I just move on and be like, okay, it's picking up keywords. That's kind of the thing that I look at it. That's how I look at it. Doing the keywords is more important, I think, than trying to get the entire text. Some words just don't come through, and it's like, I don't think anybody's going to go in and actually look up, brooms. They might, but, and if it's spelled with, weird or funny or something,
So is the purpose of OCR to give people something that they can look for, and if they find something,
Keywords.
they can come in and look at it if they don't actually get all the information?
OCR is actually, when you go into Content DM, you can't actually just go in and type in the word brooms and bring everything up.
Okay.
It's only going to search this part here.
Okay.
So unless I go in and make a subject, subject category and say brooms, which means I'd have to read this entire
Right.
text, it's not going to pick up the word brooms.
Okay.
That's where this part comes in, and that's where the OCR part comes in. It all has to do with digital searching. It has to do with searching and trying to search materials that I've not said and entered all this information in. Basically, when we're doing that searching, we're just doing this subject headings. So sometimes you'll see items. There's a few of these that the subject headings go on and on and on. It's like, oh my goodness. That's because we didn't have OCR to help go through and scan it and actually pick up the words.
Okay.
So, if I'm looking for an individual's name like this guy here, Jacob D. B. Lowe, or George Johnson or Craven Hester. Look at some of these wild names. So, if you're looking for something on that guy, unless I've got it here in the subject category, he's not going to show up.
Okay.
That's the one thing to remember. So this is very important to try to get as much in there as you can, but OCR makes it just even better. It's like making subject headings, only you're actually reading the book. So
Okay.
That's a good question, Lorraine. I don't know if we offer a way. Let's see, is there a mechanism for someone to submit a document if they have transcribed it? Do you mean something like in our collection? I don't know if we have. I don't know. I would have to ask Brittany, who is in charge of our collections, if there's a way that you can transcribe in our. That's a good question, and I honestly, unfortunately, do not know the answer.
We can get back with them.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, if you, we can get back with you. Kara's going to make a note, and we'll see if we can. I'll ask Brittany. Brittany's in charge of the state library's digital collections, and I'll ask her if there's transcription possibilities. So I know that other places, when I worked at the public library, we had all the May Rice Sewell letters, and there was a way that you could volunteer to go in and transcribe, and you could send in the file, and it could be uploaded. But I don't know if we can do. That's a good question, and I'm sorry I don't know the answer, but we can try to find out. Rianne, so the OCR transcription is important because what we search for is being located in the transcription. Yes. So as I said, yeah. So if you're looking for, I'm trying to think, there was an example. Somebody wanted to know about goats. I had a question one time from somebody who was asking about goats and early Indiana. I think it was a Conner Prairie person. They were doing research up there, and they were like, did they have goats in Indiana in 1830? I'm like, yeah, I think so. And I was able to find it in the law book. Well, the way that I found it is I was able to go in and type in goats, and it came up through the transcription. And I was able to say, well, yes, and here's, the digital item you can actually look for yourself. It says, if you have a goat, it has to be tied up or something. I don't know. There was some weird law about goats. But it was a good way to really figure out and, to find the answer to her question. So.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I don't see any typing, so I'm going to say no. Man,
I
we're right on almost on the dot.
I am going to go ahead and put the LEU up. You can download it. It's at the top. Encounter the Past LEU certificate. So you can download that for your records. I will be sending out a link to the webinar as well as the chat transcript. And we will also actually be archiving the webinar and putting it on our website whenever it's actually transcribed. We actually do transcribe our webinars first. So once that's done, we will have that up on our archive webinar page. Chris, thank you so much for doing this for us today.
Not a problem, yeah.
I've learned new things that I didn't know.
Yeah,
so.
I was even amazed when I was talking to my friends when we were, I was like, oh, we do this, and they were like, oh my gosh, we didn't know. I'm like, yeah, go, check out our collections, and even go to other places and check out other collections. This is amazing, the amount of digital work that's going on, and even, this is just kind of a shameless plug actually, just for what we've got going on. So there's a lot of new stuff, and come back for future collections. I know that Bethany just got a grant to do the Will Hayes collection. So if you don't know who Will Hayes is, thank him for your rating system on your movies. So I know she's getting ready to do stuff like that, and we've got other things coming, and I'm working on a new project of a new collection. So we just keep adding, just keep checking back.
Okay, so Tracy, I see your message about the certificate link is not working. In the follow-up email that I send out, I will attach the LEU certificate so you can print it out that way. No problem. Thanks everybody for coming today. We really appreciate your attendance. And we hope that you've learned something today that you didn't know before. Have a great day.